Is no one going to help her? Nathan Reed muttered as he stepped out of his car, his breath catching at the sight before him. In the middle of Midtown Atlanta's chaotic sidewalks, a small girl lay motionless on the concrete, right next to an overflowing trash bin. She looked no more than 6 years old, black, barefoot, and shivering in a thin, stained gray dress. Her skin had a sickly pallor, and her tiny limbs were twisted unnaturally beneath her. Crowds moved around her like she didn't exist. Nathan's heart pounded. "What the hell is wrong with you people?" He shouted to no one in particular as a businessman brushed past him, barely glancing down. "She's a child." He rushed forward and knelt beside her. Her breathing was shallow, her lips dry and cracked. "Sweetheart, can you hear me?" The girl stirred slightly, then let out the softest of groans. Her eyes cracked open for a moment, glazed and unfocused. "Water," she rasped. Nathan immediately grabbed a half-empty bottle from his coat pocket and gently lifted her head to help her drink. She managed a small sip before her hand slid weakly down his arm. "I'm Nathan," he said, voice shaking. "What's your name?" "Anna," she whispered. His jaw clenched. "Anna, do you know where your parents are? Are you lost?" She blinked, as if confused by the question. "I ran away." "Ran away from where?" Instead of answering, she slowly lifted her wrist. That's when he saw it. A strange bracelet, thick, black, metallic. It didn't belong on any child. There was no hospital branding, no emergency contact number, just a smooth surface and a soft, pulsating red light blinking every 5 seconds. Nathan's pulse kicked up. He tapped his phone and ran a quick scan. It buzzed, then died, screen flickering static for a moment before freezing entirely. "Damn it," he muttered, eyes narrowing at the bracelet. "Who gave you this, Anna?" Her lips trembled. "They did." "Who's they?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out, just a strangled gasp. Then her body went limp in his arms. "Anna? Anna?" Her head dropped against his chest. No, stay with me," Nathan shouted, sweeping her up into his arms as panic surged through him. "Somebody call an ambulance." But again, the crowd just stared. Some slowed, some filmed with their phones, but no one stepped forward. "To hell with this," he growled. He sprinted toward his car, flung open the back door, and gently laid Anna across the seat. "Drive," he barked to his stunned driver. "Children's Hospital. Now." The car sped off, tires screeching. Nathan kept his hand on her chest, counting her breaths. She was still alive, but barely. She didn't speak again until they were halfway to the hospital. In a thin whisper, her eyes fluttered open. "Don't. Take me back. You're safe, Anna," he said firmly, holding her hand. "I promise you, I'm not taking you back to anyone." Tears leaked from the corners of her eyes. "They said we're not real kids. That no one will care if we disappear." Nathan's heart shattered. "Who said that?" "The place. They put the bracelets on us. They said it helps with our behavior. That we're helping the country. But it hurts. All the time." Nathan stared at her. "There are more kids?" She nodded faintly. "Only kids like me. Black, brown. They said nobody wants us." If you felt something for Anna's story, like this video, comment where you're watching from. There might be someone near you watching too. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories. He gritted his teeth, fury burning through him. "Anna, do you remember where this place is?" "A building, with no windows, underground. We don't get to go outside." The nurses rushed toward him with a gurney. "What happened?" one asked, wheeling her away. "I found her unconscious on the street," he said, following close behind. "She has a strange device on her wrist. I need someone from pediatric trauma and cybersecurity here. Immediately." As the ER team worked, Nathan stood frozen, watching the little girl disappear behind the trauma room doors. He didn't know who had made her run. He didn't know who had locked her in that place. "I only saw the sky when I escaped. I crawled through a vent when they weren't looking." She tried to sit up, but her body gave out. "Shh," he whispered. "Don't talk. Save your strength." He reached for his phone again, completely dead. That bracelet wasn't just a tracker. It was a signal jammer. A control device. A weapon. They reached the emergency entrance, and Nathan burst through the doors carrying her in his arms. "She needs help, now," he shouted. But he knew one thing. Someone had turned black children into test subjects. And tonight, they had made a mistake. They let one escape. Nathan stood in the sterile hospital hallway, his mind buzzing like static. The soft beep of machines and muted footsteps of medical staff blurred into a dull background hum. He watched the trauma room door with the same intensity as a soldier watching a battlefield, every muscle in his body clenched, ready for a threat he couldn't yet name. Anna had been inside for 20 minutes. The nurse had assured him she was stable, but that wasn't enough. Not when a 6-year-old girl had collapsed in his arms wearing a military-grade device that didn't officially exist. He glanced at his phone again, still dead. "That damn bracelet," he muttered, pacing. A voice beside him made him jump. "Mr. Reed?" He turned. A nurse in light green scrubs stood holding a plastic bag with gloves on. "We removed this from the patient's wrist," she said. "We weren't sure what it was, so we didn't want to tamper with it." Nathan stepped forward, eyes narrowing at the object inside. It was more disturbing up close. Seamless black metal, no seams, no ports, just a single pulsing node at its center. The surface reflected nothing. It looked like a shadow frozen in steel. He took the bag carefully. "You were right not to touch it." The nurse hesitated. "I also need to inform you. Child Protective Services has been alerted. It's protocol for unattended minors in medical emergencies." Nathan stiffened. "I understand. Just keep her safe. She's not just a lost child, she's a target." The nurse's expression shifted. "Do you believe she's in danger?" He met her eyes. "Yes, and so are any kids like her." She swallowed and gave a slow nod. "We'll keep her under observation and restrict access." Meh. As she walked away, Nathan turned the bag in his hand again. The device's pulsing had stopped. Now, it was completely dormant, as if it were waiting. He pulled out his backup phone, an encrypted model not tied to any public network, and dialed a number he hadn't used in 5 years. After 3 rings, a gravelly voice answered. "Didn't think I'd ever hear from you again. Daniel, I need your eyes," Nathan said. "I have something I thought was buried." "You always say that. Be more specific." "DORA. Silence." Then, "Where are you?" "St. Augustine Children's Hospital, Atlanta. I have a girl 6 years old wearing a device we both said should never see daylight." Another pause. "You still have access to the SpectreNet terminal? I'll ping you a live trace. I need this off book. I'll scrub the node and scan for silent data. ETA 15 minutes. Make it 10. He hung up and slid into a chair just as a familiar figure rounded the corner. Olivia Mendez, a hospital administrator in her 50s, gray streaks in her dark hair and a presence that filled any room. Nathan stood. "Nathan Reed," she said with a disapproving frown. "You just bring trouble with you, don't you?" "Good to see you too, Liv," he said. "I need you to secure room 3C. No press, no visitors, and no records uploaded to state databases until I say otherwise." "Jesus, what have you dragged in?" "Something radioactive. National security level. That girl Anna, she's not just a kid. She's evidence." "Of what?" Nathan looked down the hallway. "Of a program that should have died years ago." Olivia's eyes softened. She looked so small when they wheeled her in. "She is," he said quietly. "But someone decided she was a lab rat." Inside the trauma room, Anna stirred. A nurse leaned over her. "Hi, sweetie. Can you hear me?" Anna blinked slowly, then nodded. "You're safe now, okay? That man who brought you Mr. Reed, he stayed the whole time." Anna's lip quivered. "Is he mad?" "No, not at all. He was very worried about you." "Will they come back?" she asked. "Who, honey?" Anna didn't answer. She just looked at the ceiling, silent tears sliding down her cheeks. Outside, Nathan received a ping on his device. The scan had finished. Daniel's voice came through the secure line. "That's not just a tracker. It's an emotional regulator." Nathan froze. "Come again?" The device, if it's fully operational, it's designed to monitor neurological responses and suppress emotional reactions. It learns the subject's emotional profile and trains them to reduce fear, anger, disobedience, like a digital leash. Nathan's voice was low. That was never part of the original proposal. No, it wasn't. Someone updated the tech. Is there a location stamp? Negative, but it piggybacked on a closed satellite band. Military-level encryption, which means someone in defense or above cleared this. Nathan closed his eyes. They're still running it. Looks that way. Keep tracing the band. If there's a server ping, I want it. You planning to go after them? Nathan stared at the trauma room door. I'm planning to make sure they never touch her again. Hours later, as the hospital settled into evening quiet, Nathan sat beside Anna's bed. She was awake now, IV in her arm, still pale, but stronger. Hi, he said gently. She looked at him cautiously. You scared me, you know. Anna didn't smile. She reached for his hand instead. Do I have to go back? He shook his head. Number, you don't. I won't let that happen. They said we were dangerous. That's why they kept us inside. No, Anna, you're not dangerous. You're brave. You're strong. And you're going to be okay. She looked up at him. Are there more kids? His throat tightened. I don't know, but if there are, I'll find them. She squeezed his hand. Promise? I swear. And in that moment, Nathan knew the war he'd tried to leave behind had just come knocking on his door again, this time in the form of a little girl with a steel bracelet and a secret the world wasn't ready to hear. The early morning sunlight filtered through the blinds of the hospital room, casting long stripes across Anna's sleeping face. Nathan sat in a chair beside her bed, watching the rise and fall of her chest, every breath a reminder that she was still here, still alive. But his mind wasn't calm. Not even close. He hadn't slept. All night he had been digging, calling in favors, rerouting old networks, decrypting fragments of long-buried reports. The deeper he went, the more the past clawed its way back. DORA. Developmental Optimization and Regulation for Adolescents. It had started as a classified resilience program meant to aid trauma victims. But behind the curtains, it had twisted into something far darker. The proposal Nathan once reviewed was clinical, sterile charts, graphs, projected outcomes. But Anna's eyes told a different story. Fear, pain, dehumanization. He pulled up the scan data again. Daniel had flagged something unusual in the bracelet's code. A signature string embedded in its firmware, DORA09BK, followed by a series of numbers, a batch code. Anna wasn't the first. She was part of a group, and if there was a K series, there were at least 10 other sets before her. Nathan leaned forward, phone in hand, as Daniel's voice crackled through the secure line. Got something. That device isn't just emitting data. It was syncing to a satellite relay. I caught a bounce signal before it shut down completely. Where did it go? Nathan asked. That's the interesting part. It pinged off a decommissioned military communications hub just outside Tallahassee. Black site, technically defunct since 2011, but the power grid shows steady consumption, 24/7. Coordinates? Daniel sent them instantly. Nathan's jaw clenched. I'm going down there. Alone? You're walking into a federal ghost town that's likely not empty. She almost died, Daniel. This isn't research anymore. It's exploitation. They're using black kids as test subjects like no one will notice. Daniel was silent a beat. I'll prep the drone. You'll have eyes in the sky by the time you land. Nathan turned as he heard movement. Anna stirred, rubbing her eyes. Hey, he said softly. She sat up slowly, her tiny hand instinctively going to her wrist, now bare. She looked at him with a question in her eyes. It's gone, he said. We took it off. But it's not over, is it? Nathan crouched beside her. No, sweetheart. But we're starting. Anna's voice was thin. You believe me? I do. And I'm going to find the people who hurt you. But I need your help. Anything you can remember, people. Voices. What the place looked like. Anna paused, her fingers fidgeting with the hospital sheet. It was always cold. The walls were gray. No windows. They had cameras everywhere. They said we were lucky, that we were chosen, but sometimes kids didn't come back after testing. Nathan kept his voice steady. Did you hear names? She nodded. Dr. Ellman, and someone they called Major. He didn't wear a coat like the others. He wore black boots. His voice was angry. Nathan froze. Dr. Lena Ellman. He knew the name. A biobehavioral specialist who disappeared from the academic world a decade ago under mysterious circumstances. Rumors swirled about unauthorized experiments overseas, nothing ever proven. Until now. What about the building? Anything else? Anna drew a shaky breath. There was a symbol, a bird, but with wires instead of feathers, on the doors. Nathan's blood ran cold. That was the emblem of Rex Corps, a private defense contractor that had worked closely with the Pentagon in the early 2000s. They'd been investigated for human rights violations but buried it all under national security. He stood. Anna, do you trust me? She looked into his eyes, solemn. Yes. I have to go for a while, to find the place where they kept you. But you'll be safe here. Olivia will look after you. I'll check in every day. Anna grabbed his hand. Promise you won't stop looking? He knelt and kissed her forehead. I promise. No one else gets to disappear. Aerial view showed what ground level didn't. Beneath the trees, concrete slabs marked the outline of a facility built into the earth. Not a building. A bunker. He slipped through the gate, walking slowly, phone in hand. The signal from the bracelet, though now severed, had a history tag. It had last synced at this location just 2 days ago, which meant Anna had been here recently. The forest grew quieter, eerier. Then he saw it. A ventilation shaft, half covered with leaves and rust, but clearly functional. This was how Anna escaped. He crouched beside it. Small enough for a child, not for a man. Nathan stood, eyes scanning for another entrance. Then he heard it, a faint hum, like generators buried deep underground. He wasn't alone. Someone was still down there, and he was going in. Nathan crouched beside the rusted ventilation shaft, the low hum of machinery vibrating faintly beneath his feet. Something was operational. He found the access hatch half buried beneath a collapsed supply shed. It took both hands and a crowbar to wrench it open. The hinges screamed in protest, flakes of rust snapping off like brittle bark. Beneath the hatch was a narrow shaft with a steel ladder descending into darkness. Nathan strapped a small flashlight to his chest, clipped a concealed pistol to his hip, and began to climb down. Each step echoed as he descended deeper. The air smelled like damp earth and metal. Sunlight filtered weakly through the dense canopy above, casting mottled shadows over the overgrown path. To anyone passing by, this place looked like nothing, just another forgotten patch of forest. But to Anna, it had been a cage. He circled the area slowly, scanning with his thermal imaging app. A faint heat signature pulsed beneath the ground, deep and layered. Whatever this place was, it was still active. The hum wasn't just residual power. The logo beneath it was the same bird with wires Anna had described. Rexcorp. Nathan's jaw clenched. He moved deeper. The corridor split into two. He took the left, drawn by a flicker of motion from one of the surveillance monitors lining the ceiling. Most were dead, but one glowed faintly, showing a small room with metal beds and plastic toys strewn across the floor. A nursery, underground. He reached a locked door labeled Observation Bay 1. The keypad was dark, but the panel next to it had been tampered with. Wires jutted from a crude override module. Someone else had been here recently. Maybe even Anna. He pried it open, hot-wiring the circuit. The door slid open with a groan. The room was worse than he imagined. Tiny metal-framed beds lined the walls, each with restraints at the corners. IV poles stood beside several, still equipped with tubing. The walls were padded soundproof. A glass window on the far side looked into a second room with larger examination tables, surgical lights, and what looked like EEG monitors. He stepped inside, scanning the room. Papers littered the desks, charts, behavioral reports, dosage schedules. All had names. Children. Dozens of them. He picked up a folder labeled Subject K09B, Anna J. His hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. Subject, Anna J. Age, 6. Background, African American. Ward of the state. No familial attachments. Treatment. Stage 3, neural desensitization. Progress. High compliance under regulatory suppression. Subject exhibits episodic memory glitches. Temporary aggression under emotional overload. Nathan's stomach turned. They had labeled her like equipment, like livestock. He snapped photos of every page with his encrypted device. This had to go public. Suddenly, a sound. Soft. Metallic. A click. He spun around, gun drawn. A figure emerged from the far hallway, tall, wearing a black tactical suit, helmet obscuring the face. The rifle in his hands was aimed squarely at Nathan. "Drop it," the man barked. Nathan raised his hand slowly. "I'm just here to see the truth. You're not supposed to be here." "No one is supposed to be here," Nathan replied, his voice calm but edged. "Not children, not guards. This place is off. Books. You're interfering with national security." "No," Nathan said. "I'm exposing a crime." The guard tightened his grip. Nathan's mind raced. He needed a distraction. Before he could make a move, another voice echoed down the corridor. "Stand down." Both men froze. A woman stepped into view, lab coat over dark slacks. Hair pulled back into a tight braid. She looked older than her pictures from years ago. But Nathan recognized her instantly. Dr. Lena Ellman. "I thought you vanished," he said coldly. Ellman regarded him with something like amusement. "Funny. I thought you would have kept your nose out of this, Reed. Anna's alive. She remembers." "Children always remember pain," Ellman said, unfazed. "But memories are pliable. Our work is about optimizing survival. Children like Anna were born into a system that abandoned them. We gave them purpose. You strapped devices to their bodies. You drugged them. You turned them into experiments. We trained them for resilience. The world is getting worse. You know that. Climate collapse, war, societal unrest. These children will be the survivors." "No," Nathan said sharply. "You trained them to obey, to fear, to forget themselves." Ellman's eyes narrowed. "You don't understand the stakes." Nathan lowered his voice. "I understand children being tortured while the world looks away." Ellman stepped closer, studying him. "You always were too idealistic. That's why we never offered you full clearance. You wouldn't have survived this work." He held her gaze. "You think I came alone?" For the first time, Ellman blinked. Miles above, Daniel's drone locked onto the facility's coordinates. Data streamed live to 3 independent journalists, a human rights agency, and 2 congressional watchdogs. Every word Ellman had spoken was already being archived. Nathan allowed himself the smallest smile. Checkmate. The lights flickered. A loud alarm began to blare. Ellman's expression darkened. "You'll regret this." But Nathan had already turned and was running. He didn't need revenge. He needed to get this truth out and get back to the only person who had ever made him believe redemption was still possible. A 6-year-old girl named Anna. Nathan sprinted down the corridor, gun tight in his grip, heart pounding like a war drum. The alarm wailed through the underground compound. Red emergency lights strobing against the sterile gray walls. Every turn felt like a memory of Anna's words. Cages, cameras, no windows. Behind him, shouts rang out, boots slamming against concrete. The guard hadn't fired, but he wouldn't hesitate if Nathan stopped running. He needed a way out, fast. He ducked into a supply room, slammed the door shut, and jammed a filing cabinet against it. The pounding started seconds later. Pulling his phone from his pocket, he tapped into the drone feed. The aerial cam showed 3 SUVs barreling down the dirt road toward the site, likely reinforcements. "Daniel," he hissed into the mic. "They're on to me. Get me a path out. Now." "Already working on it," Daniel replied. "Ventilation grid, B5 leads to the north slope. About 50 feet up and covered in pine brush. You'll have to climb, but you can make it." Nathan scanned the room. There, behind a storage rack, was a crawl space marked Exhaust B5. He pried it open, slipped inside, and began crawling, elbows scraping metal as he moved toward freedom. Inside the duct, it was dark and suffocating, but he kept going. Every inch farther from Elman, from the guards, from the memory of those metal beds and restrained wrists, was a step toward justice. 10 minutes later, he pushed aside a steel grate and emerged into daylight. Trees, cold air. The hum of the compound now muffled below. He pulled off his coat and wiped the sweat from his brow. "Nathan?" Daniel's voice crackled in his ear. "I'm out," Nathan said, panting. "Where are we on the data?" "It's already moving. 3 watchdog agencies are reviewing." I anonymized Anna's name. "She's safe." Nathan nodded, then froze as he heard something behind him, twigs snapping. Hespun, gun raised. A figure stepped out from the trees. Female. No weapon visible. She raised her hands. "I'm not here to hurt you." Then who the hell are you?" "My name is Nyla. I'm a whistleblower. I worked in that facility. I saw what they did to the children. But I didn't know how to stop it." Nathan lowered his gun slightly. "You were part of it?" "I was a tech analyst. I monitored biometric feedback. They told us it was about national preparedness, building emotional resilience in neglected kids. But then the restraints started. Then the implants. Then the memory wipes. Why come to me now? I saw you on the cameras. With Elman, I heard what you said. You're not like them." Nathan stepped closer. "Where are the rest of the children?" Nyla looked down. "Scattered. Transferred to other black sites. Only Anna and 1 other escaped this one. The rest, I don't know." Nathan's jaw clenched. "Then we find out. Back in Atlanta, Anna sat curled up in a hospital bed, knees to her chest. Olivia sat beside her, gently brushing the girl's hair. "You're safe here," Olivia said softly. "No one can reach you without going through me." Anna didn't speak. She just stared at the wall, eyes hollow, until the television on the far side of the room changed. A breaking news banner scrolled across the screen. "Underground facility. Linked to human experimentation exposed. Private defense contractor. Under investigation." No. Photos flashed grainy images of the compound, documents, even the emblem of the bird with wires. Anna's breath hitched. "That's it," she whispered. "That's the place." Olivia turned to her. "Sweetheart, do you know what this means?" Anna nodded slowly. "He found it." Hours later, Nathan walked back into the hospital. His clothes were dirty, boots caked with mud. His eyes searched the hallway until they found her. Anna, she saw him, and something inside her face cracked relief, recognition, the beginnings of hope. She reached out, and he crossed the room in 3 long strides, pulling her into his arms. "I promised I'd come back," he whispered. "You kept it," she said into his chest. Olivia approached quietly. "The media's spinning it already. RexCorp is scrambling to deny involvement, but the documents are too solid." "You shook something loose, Nathan." He turned. "We've only just begun." Anna looked up. "There are more kids." Nathan met Olivia's eyes. "Then we find them. All of them." Olivia hesitated. "There's something else. This morning, a man from a private agency came by. Said he was offering protective relocation for Anna. Showed no badge, no warrant. We turned him away." Nathan's blood ran cold. "They're already trying to erase this. Not just the evidence," Olivia said. "The survivors." Nathan crouched to Anna's level. "We're going to keep you safe. No matter what." Anna looked at him with a seriousness far beyond her years. "I want to help. I remember things, faces, places." "You will," Nathan said. "But first, you heal." He turned back to Olivia. "We need a secure location. Witness protection level secure. Somewhere they can't reach her." "I know a place," Olivia said. "But if you go down this road, Nathan, there's no going back. RexCorp has long arms." Nathan exhaled slowly. "Let them reach. I'll cut them off. Outside, Sirens wailed in the distance. The city kept moving. But inside that hospital room, something had shifted. A billionaire had found purpose. A little girl had found her voice. And justice had just found its first spark. The drive to the safe house was long and quiet, save for the occasional hum of tires over cracked asphalt and the steady rhythm of windshield wipers cutting through a sudden Georgia rainstorm. Nathan sat in the back seat of the armored SUV, his arm gently wrapped around Anna, who had finally dozed off against his chest. Her small hand clutched a stuffed bear Olivia had bought from the hospital gift shop. Its fur was already worn, one eye slightly loose, but Anna held it like it was armor. Beside them sat Olivia, her expression sharp and unwavering. She'd arranged the relocation in under 3 hours. The safe house was one of her husband's old properties, a cabin hidden in the foothills of the Appalachians long since off-grid, with a satellite internet link and 2 panic rooms built into the basement. It had once been a retreat for grieving war veterans. Now it would shelter a different kind of survivor. "We'll be there in 20, the driver announced. Nathan gave a curt nod. "Any tales?" "None that we could detect, but RexCorp has surveillance ghosts. They can scrub digital tracks like they were never there." "Then we stay off the grid," Nathan muttered. Anna stirred in his arms. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe," he said. "Somewhere no one can hurt you again." The girl nodded, then closed her eyes once more. When they arrived, the cabin looked like something out of another time-weathered cedar siding, a wraparound porch, and thick trees guarding it on all sides. The windows were covered with blackout curtains, and a large satellite dish was barely visible behind the garage. As they entered, Nathan felt the tension in his shoulders ease, just slightly. The interior smelled of wood smoke and pine, simple, clean, functional. Olivia directed the set-up medkits, emergency lights, food supplies. They kept things quiet, efficient, professional. Once Anna was settled into a small upstairs room, tucked beneath flannel sheets, Olivia turned to Nathan in the hallway. "You okay?" He looked at her, eyes tired. "I don't know what that word means anymore. She's safe now. You did that." "For now," he replied. "But RexCorp doesn't just vanish. They bury things. They erase people. And what do you plan to do?" Nathan looked down the hall, where Anna's door was slightly ajar. "I plan to make them regret ever thinking she was disposable." Later that night, Nathan sat alone in the study, papers and encrypted tablets scattered across the desk. Nyla had sent more files, internal emails, lab records, security logs. They painted a disturbing picture. At least 3 other black sites had been active in the last 12 months. Each focused on behavioral modification, targeting children with no familial anchors. The vast majority were black or Latino. RexCorp had scrubbed the official registries. These kids didn't exist on paper, but they were very real. He clicked open one particular file, footage, 09B, session 47. The screen showed Anna, strapped to a chair, electrodes on her temples. A voice off-screen asked her to recall a memory her mother's face. Anna cried, repeating that she didn't remember. The voice calmly replied, "Then we'll help you forget everything." Nathan shut the laptop, his hands shaking. A soft voice came from behind him. "Who were they?" He turned. Anna stood at the door, hugging her bear. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but steady. "You should be sleeping," he said gently. "I heard the video." Nathan hesitated. "They were people who thought hurting you was the only way to control the world. Will they find us?" He knelt in front of her. "Not if I have anything to say about it." Anna looked down. "I don't want to be scared anymore." "You won't be," he promised. "You're not alone now." She was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Can I help?" Nathan blinked. "Help?" "I remember things, like the way the doors opened, the names they said. Maybe it matters?" A slow smile crept onto his face. "Anna, that could matter more than anything." He pulled a pad and pen from the drawer. "Draw whatever you remember. Words, pictures, anything." For the next hour, they sat on the rug in silence. Anna drew vents, security panels, hallway layouts, and strange-looking machines. She wrote names: Dr. Elman, Major Bell, someone called the Monitor. Each stroke of her crayon was a nail in RexCorp's coffin. Nathan saved every page. By the time she fell asleep again on the couch, Nathan was already scanning the images and uploading them to Daniel. A few minutes later, Daniel's voice crackled through. She just gave us everything we need. The names match aliases we had under federal watch years ago. And that layout? It overlaps with blueprints from a prototype RexCorp site in Nevada, one that never got publicly approved. Is it active? Nathan asked. Satellite scans show signs of heat signatures, like the Georgia site but bigger. Nathan exhaled slowly. Then that's our next stop. Not alone, Daniel said. We go in smart. I'll activate our old team. Pull the files. Clean house. No one who ever touched Dora stays untouched. Nathan looked down at Anna, curled up peacefully. Because this time, he whispered, we finish what they started. But on our terms. Outside, the wind howled through the trees. Inside, justice was no longer a hope. It was in motion. The desert sun scorched the tarmac as Nathan stepped off the private plane, heat waves rising like ghosts from the cracked ground. Behind him, the distant silhouette of the Nevada mountains loomed over an otherwise barren wasteland. Just outside of Tonopah, a town with more secrets than residents, lay the next potential RexCorp's facility. Buried, forgotten, and possibly still running. Daniel met him at the bottom of the stairs. The former intelligence analyst looked older than Nathan remembered, more gray in the beard, more lines in the eyes, but the same razor-sharp mind. You weren't kidding, Daniel said. Anna's drawings matched the original blueprints almost exactly. Down to the service tunnels. They called it Site Echo, Nathan replied, adjusting his jacket against the dry wind. Supposed to be decommissioned in 2014 after the funding dried up. Funding didn't dry up, Daniel said, handing over a tablet. It just shifted. Black budget streams passed through at least 4 shell companies. I traced one back to a lobbying firm in D.C. that's still active. Nathan scanned the documents. The allocations were listed as Resilience Research and Adolescent Cognitive Development. All code for something far darker. We're looking at something bigger than a rogue facility, Daniel continued. RexCorp has ties in the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, even the Office of Health Research. They built an empire, Nathan muttered, and buried it under children's blood. He looked up toward the sun-bleached horizon. We take it apart. Brick by brick. The road to Site Echo was long and unmarked, an old military transport route. Now little more than a ribbon of cracked asphalt and sand. Nathan and Daniel rode in silence, joined by Nyla, who had insisted on coming. I worked on Echo's database firewall, she said from the back seat. It was designed to be untraceable. Standalone network, no external access. But if it's still active, there'll be a local mainframe. I can crack it. Nathan glanced at her in the rear view. What made you stay quiet for so long? Nyla looked out the window. Fear. But Anna changed that. If they get away with this, it's not just her generation they'll target next. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, they reached a rusted security gate, half buried in sand. The remains of a military sign read, U.S. government property. No trespassing. Bullet holes riddled the letters. Daniel climbed out and pried the gate open. It creaked like a warning. Beyond the fence, the desert floor dropped slightly, revealing a cluster of sand-covered bunkers' faint outlines, visible only if you knew where to look. There, Daniel said, pointing. North entrance tunnel. That'll be our way in. They moved quickly, the air cooling with the setting sun. Nathan led the way, his steps purposeful, jaw clenched. At the tunnel entrance, they stopped. The hatch was newer than expected, reinforced steel, keypad access, no signs of decay. Nyla stepped forward, cracked her knuckles, and knelt by the panel. Give me 5 minutes. Nathan kept watch as Daniel scanned the surroundings with a drone-linked device. 2 heat signatures inside, he murmured. Basement level. Could be patrols, or could be children. Nathan finished. The lock clicked. Nyla stood, brushing dust from her jeans. We're in. They slipped inside. The air changed instantly, cool, stale, heavy with the scent of chemicals. Fluorescent lights flickered to life down a long corridor. Walls covered in white tile, floor scuffed by decades of boots and wheels. They moved carefully, following the layout Anna had drawn. Every turn she'd sketched was real, every junction accurate. Then came the first horror. A room full of small, identical beds, rows of them. Buckled restraints at each corner. Surveillance cameras hanging from the ceiling like steel vultures. Daniel whispered, "My God." Nathan moved to one of the beds, fingers brushing the cold metal. He saw initials scratched into the frame. MD. SH. CR. Names, he said. They tried to remember who they were. They pressed on. In the central lab, they found the server. It sat dormant behind a thick pane of glass, surrounded by outdated tech and monitoring devices still pulsing with light. Nyla moved fast, fingers dancing across the console. "They've updated some of the firmware, but I can still access the old root directories." Nathan turned away and stared at a wall covered in photographs, children's faces, all labeled with numbers. No names, no birthdays. Just identifiers. "You'll want to see this," Nyla called out. On the monitor appeared a file. Project Sync. Active subjects. Nathan leaned in. The list showed 27 names, codes, locations, health data. At least 7 were marked as missing. But the rest, they're still active, Daniel murmured. "This facility isn't abandoned. It's operating under deep cover." Nyla's hands trembled. "These kids, they're in different states. Arizona, Texas, Ohio. They moved them after Atlanta blew up in the news." Nathan's fist slammed the table. "They're scattering them. Hiding the evidence." He turned to Daniel. "We have to go public with this. Everything. Not just the labs, but the network. The people funding this." Daniel nodded. "I'll coordinate with the journalists already tracking RexCorps. We leak the data in waves. Slow enough they can't bury it all." Nyla looked at Nathan. "And Anna? She stays safe, protected, but she's more than a victim now, she's a witness." Nathan grabbed a backup drive and copied every file. As he tucked it into his jacket, a new sound cut through the silence. Footsteps. Rapid. Heavy. "Incoming," Daniel said. The team ducked into the server room as voices echoed through the halls. 3 men, armed, scanning for movement. Nathan motioned silently. They waited, breath held, as boots passed just feet from their hiding place. When the footsteps faded, they moved. Back through the corridors, through the tunnel, into the desert night. They didn't stop running until the compound was far behind and the stars stretched endless above them. Nathan looked back once, eyes hard. "They'll come for us now," Nyla said. "Let them," Nathan replied. "This time, we're not running, we're fighting." He didn't say it out loud, but the thought burned in his chest. For every child whose name was reduced to a number, for every scar left in the dark, justice would have a name and a face. Anna's. The sun hadn't yet risen when Nathan, Daniel, and Nyla reached the outskirts of Tonopah. Exhausted and coated in dust, they huddled in a safe house disguised as an abandoned diner off a desert highway. Inside, the faded checkered floor and dusty counters gave no hint of the encrypted satellite uplink hidden in the back room. The mood was tense. The drive back from Site Echo had been silent, each of them processing what they'd seen. 27 names, 27 lives still caught in the cold hands of RexCorps. Nathan poured black coffee into a chipped mug, staring out through the blinds. He hadn't slept. Not since he left Anna. "She okay?" Daniel asked gently. Nathan didn't turn. "Olivia says she's fine. She's been drawing more. Quiet, but calm. Still has that bear." "The one from the hospital gift shop?" "Yeah," Nathan said, finally sipping his coffee. "She named it Justice." Daniel allowed himself a faint smile. Kids got good instincts. In the other room, Nyla's fingers flew across a keyboard. She was pulling real-time data from the backup files, cross-referencing names, locations, and a growing pattern of whistleblowers who had disappeared over the years. "I found something," she called. One of the names SH was flagged in a local missing persons case in Ohio. 7-year-old boy named Samuel Hartwell, vanished from a foster home last spring. Last known placement was through a third-party agency funded by one of the same RexCorp's shell companies. Nathan stood behind her, staring at the boy's picture. Brown eyes, buzzed hair, a look of curiosity in the tilt of his head. The kind Anna sometimes had when she wasn't afraid. He's in one of the current facilities? According to the heat signature logs, he was transferred to a site near Dayton 2 months ago. Nathan's voice dropped. Then we're going to Dayton. Nyla hesitated. You're not bringing Anna, right? No, Nathan said, firm. She stays with Olivia. Hidden. I made her a promise, but something in his voice cracked slightly. Because he knew. The deeper they went, the more danger they brought to the surface. Back at the cabin, Anna sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by crayons and sketch pads. Olivia watched from the kitchen, marveling at the quiet strength in the little girl. She wasn't like other children her age. There was something ancient behind her eyes. Like she'd already seen the worst of the world and had chosen to keep fighting anyway. You want some breakfast? Olivia asked. Eggs? Waffles? Just toast, please, Anna replied softly. As Olivia turned to the stove, Anna pulled a folded piece of paper from under the bear's belly. It was something she'd been working on in secret, a letter. She flattened it on the floor, carefully printing the words she'd practiced. Dear Mr. Nathan, I remember more now. I saw a door with stars on it. They called it the dream room. That's where they made us watch things. It was always cold, and there was a man who smelled like peppermints. I think his name was Bell. I think he was the worst. Please find the other kids. I don't want to be the only one who got out. That's not fair. They should be free too. Love, Anna, and Justice the Bear. She stared at the letter, unsure if it was good enough. She didn't know how to spell everything, but she hoped he'd understand. She tucked it into the pocket of his jacket hanging by the door. Then she hugged the bear and whispered, You'll keep it safe until he comes back. By nightfall, Nathan was in Dayton. He and Daniel had linked up with 2 local allies, former journalists, turned activists who had been tracking rumors of RexCorp's experiments for years. They confirmed that a fenced-off property just outside the city, a defunct youth rehab center, had recently hired new security and installed blackout blinds. No kids ever come out, said Mel, one of the activists, but supply trucks go in twice a week. Groceries, medical equipment, power generators. Soundproofing too, her partner added. We heard construction last month. Quieted after the press conference about Atlanta. Nathan studied the satellite image of the facility. It was smaller than Site Echo but more fortified. We need to know who's inside, he said. If even one child's there, we go in. That night, under the cover of darkness, Nathan slipped past the outer fence, dressed in black and equipped with a silent drone. He moved through the shadows like a man driven by ghosts. Inside, through a cracked basement window, he spotted them 3 children sitting at a long table, guarded by a single man in uniform. They were eating silently, no talking, no laughter. One child looked up, toward the window. A small girl, brown-skinned, eyes too old for her age. She didn't smile, but she saw him, and nodded. That was all he needed. Nathan retreated silently, heart pounding. He made it back to the team and laid out the plan. We go in tomorrow night. I don't care how many guards they have. We're not leaving anyone behind. This is war now, Daniel said. No more leaks, no more warnings. No, Nathan said quietly. Just the line, right here. He pulled Anna's letter from his jacket and read it again, his thumb brushing the word. Dream room. We hold the line. For them. Outside, the stars hung silent over Dayton, but this time, the darkness wasn't quiet. It was watching. And waiting. Dust motes danced in the lamplight as Nathan, Daniel, and Nyla approached the Dayton Safe House's underground command center. The files from Site Echo formed a mosaic of pain, but nothing pierced his resolve as deeply as the names they'd recovered children waiting to be freed. Each drawing Anna had made lay spread across a steel table, and the letter she'd written sat in a protective sleeve. They had ammunition now, proof of crimes hidden behind state secrecy. Nathan stared at the envelope again, fingertips brushing the crease. Dream room. What had happened behind that door? Daniel cleared his throat. I've contacted the activists in Dayton. They've identified a likely match to the rehab center. Old blueprints resurfaced after community members demanded inspections. There's a room labeled Sensory Mod Suite that fits Anna's description. Nyla closed her eyes for a moment. That must be where they broke their minds. Nathan stood, swallowing hard. Tonight, we go in. Under cover of darkness, they navigated back to the rehab facility, using a service entrance Nyla discovered online. The parking lot was empty, save for a supply van making a late run. The main entrance was boarded, but a side door marked staff only was unlocked. They slipped inside, silent as shadows. The building smelled of antiseptic, damp carpet, and stale memories. Long corridors stretched ahead, lined with locked rooms. They followed Anna's sketches, every turn measured, every corner expected. They found the door, dream room, narrow-framed, labeled only by a brass plate that read, Cognitive Suite, authorized personnel only. The hallway light flickered ominously. Nyla knelt to the keypad, fingers dancing over the interface, overriding the lock. It clicked. Inside, the room was dim. A single chair sat on a raised platform. A projector screen hung blank and pale on the opposite wall. The air smelled of ozone. On a counter, wires lay coiled like snakes. And in the corner, a whiteboard had faded remnants of charts and bullet points. Subject behavior calibration, emotional saturation monitoring, desensitization trials. It was worse than he'd imagined. Nathan took a step forward and froze as he noticed a small notebook hidden beneath the chair leg. He picked it up, voice cracking. This is Anna's. Inside in childish scrawl, they show me scary things. Pictures, sounds. I have to raise my hand to say I understand. Tears pricked his eyes. There's a window, Daniel whispered. On the far wall, behind dark glass, they could see another room empty, sterile. It was where observers sat, controlling the experiments. Nyla placed a hand on Nathan's shoulder. We'll dismantle this. He nodded. Taking out his phone, he recorded the room, the chair, the cables, the notebook. Every frame a testament to the cruelty done here. Suddenly, the alarm in the building blared. Red lights flashed. They didn't panic. Nathan said into his mic, "We have to go." They retreated, taking the notebook with them. Back through the corridors, alarms chasing their footsteps. Outside, the rain began to fall. Nathan wrapped Anna's notebook in plastic, keeping it safe. Dream room, he murmured. They weaponized imagination. Daniel nodded grimly. But we have the words. Nyla looked at him. We expose every facility, every child. They can't hide anymore. Nathan cradled the notebook. Anna's voice will be louder than their secrets. At the safe house, he placed the notebook beside the crayon sketches and Anna's letter. He whispered into the dark, "This is for them." Justice wasn't just a word. It was Anna's bear. It was her words. And now, it was their fight. The rain masked the sound of sirens approaching, but the storm was theirs to ride. Nathan sat huddled at the edge of the worn sofa in Dayton's makeshift safe house, the glow of the laptop illuminating his face in the dim light. Nyla and Daniel stood close by, arms crossed, listening as he recited the latest developments. This is bigger than RexCorps and beyond government oversight, he said, exhaling sharply. These programs fall under classified directives. We're dealing with enmeshed systems. Nyla nodded gravely. We need protection for all of us. Whistleblowers like me, you, Daniel. We can't just be exposed and left defenseless. Daniel flipped through digital files on the screen. There are laws. The Whistleblower Protection Act of 1989 shields federal employees who report misconduct. Presidential Policy Directive 19 covers intel community disclosures. Nathan's jaw set. Good. We need legal standing and physical security. If they want us to stop, they'll try to destroy us. He pulled up notes about the Office of Special Counsel, OSC, the federal agency with jurisdiction over whistleblower retaliation. I'll submit affidavits, Nathan said, voice firm. We'll file with OSC, insist on whistleblower protection. We'll alert organizations like the Signals Network. They support whistleblowers with legal aid, safe housing, psychological help. Nyla exhaled, tension easing from her shoulders. Then we're not just running. We're legitimized and protected. Daniel nodded. I'll coordinate with investigative journalists. We release redacted data, hold them accountable in the public square media, Congress, watchdogs. Meanwhile, in the Appalachian foothills, Anna sat at the kitchen table with Olivia. Add more color to the bear, Anna said, pointing at the half-colored drawing beside her. Make Justice bright. He's not a secret guard anymore, Olivia smiled. Justice looks strong now. Anna nodded, then drew a cage lifting off, birds flying free. They said we'd never leave. But we did. In every stroke, Anna reclaimed her own story. Back at the Dayton safe house, a secure line buzzed. It's the Signals Network, Daniel said, listening. They're mobilizing. Offers of pro bono counsel, secure relocation, psychological care. They'll fly us to D.C. for witness testimony. Nathan allowed a small exhale of relief. We accept. He looked at Nyla. Ready? She nodded. Let's shine that light. Days later, they gathered in a secure conference room beneath layers of protection. A representative from the OSC sat across from them. Nathan presented the evidence: the photos of Dream Room, children's drawings, RexCorp's blueprints, Anna's notebook, and formal affidavits from Nyla and Danny. The counsel leaned forward. You are now protected whistleblowers under federal law. Your identities are secure. Retaliation will be met with prosecution. No. Nathan nodded, tension easing as justice systems at last began to align with them. Outside, Capitol Hill loomed. On the Hill, a congressional subcommittee had called hearings on the exposed human experimentation. RexCorp's executives were under oath. Cameras flashed. Nathan watched Anna's drawing on his desk cage lifting, freedom flying. He thought of every child still trapped. He thought of Justice the bear, colored bright. And he thought of Anna, 6 years old, brave beyond her age. He whispered softly in the conference room, for them. Because now, they had more than hope. They had protection and the promise of justice. Nathan slid into the courtroom gallery with barely a moment to catch his breath. The echoing hush in the room felt both sacred and tense. In the front row of seats reserved for witnesses, Anna leaned against Olivia. Nathan crouched beside them for a second, brushing a soft kiss against her forehead. You're safe, he whispered. Anna nodded, holding Justice the bear against her chest. Her eyes held something fiercer than fear, purpose. He stood, walking forward with Nyla and Daniel, printed affidavits in hand. The public hearing had been called after the leak. RexCorp's executives had been subpoenaed. Journalists pressed cameras and recorders toward the witness box. Their cause had become national. At the front, the committee chair cleared her throat. Nathan approached the stand. He laid out every piece of evidence: Anna's drawings, the Dream Room notebook, the photographs of children strapped in beds. He described the brutality black and brown children used as experimental subjects, unconscious in the name of national readiness. When he spoke of Anna's plea to find the other kids, his voice broke, echoing in silent hearts across the chamber. Next, Nyla testified. She described how she wired systems to leak the data, what she knew of transport routes, how the money flowed. She named names not to destroy reputations unjustly, but to shine sunlight on a rotting institution. Daniel explained the technical tracing, how data jumped through shell companies and encrypted satellite paths. He showed how RexCorp had reactivated its network, even after public exposure. The room was silent. Even the air seemed to pause at the weight of their words. Then, RexCorp's attorney, a well-dressed man exuding cold professionalism, rose to cross-examine. So, Mr. Reed, he said, voice smooth, eyes glinting behind polished frames. You believe these children were experiments? Yet your only proof is a child's drawing, an emotionally charged testimony. Are you not manipulating emotion to make your case? Nathan steadied himself. These drawings are not propaganda. They are direct evidence from victims. They drew what they endured. That is not manipulation. It is the purest truth. The attorney frowned and attempted to discredit Nyla's leaks as illegal releases. But as he questioned her, she produced internal memos ordering transfers of children from one facility to another, signed by current executives. Silence fell as that evidence landed. Names on paper could no longer be dismissed as rumors. When Nathan left the stand, Nyla followed. Daniel remained last, showing the network map of sites and surveillance routes. A tapestry of systemic abuse sprawled across states. Later, outside the chamber, cameras swirled. Nathan greeted reporters with cautious firmness. "This is not about vengeance," he said. "It's about the future of our society. If we let the vulnerable disappear in silence, we become complicit." He turned to Olivia and Anna, waiting just beyond the media scrum. Anna stepped forward, dressed neatly in a sweater that matched the Bears' colors. In her small hand was the notebook, now laminated. She typed into a tablet outside, a video message for the hearing record. "I am Anna. They tried to break my mind, lock me in a dark room, but they didn't win. I'm here to say, you were children too. You deserve to be free." Her words ran live across news feeds. Viewers watched, hearing truth in a voice younger than their own children. At home tonight, Nathan sat with Olivia, Anna curled in his lap. The phone buzzed. Urgent calls from advocacy organizations, therapy appointments scheduled for Anna. Secure housing offered for Nyla. Then, a text. Judge Besant's order stands. OSC remains independent. No interference. He exhaled deeply. The institution tasked with protecting whistleblowers had survived an attempt to dismantle its credibility. Without OSC's independence, none of this would be possible. Olivia hugged him. "They can't undo what you started." Nathan leaned back, looking at Anna's sleeping face. He whispered into the darkness. "We may be just one small voice, but we forced them to listen." And at that moment, justice wasn't an abstract concept. It was real, fragile, and worth every risk. The first light of dawn warmed the Appalachian cabin's interior, streaking across the small room where Anna slept. Nathan sat beside her, awake since early, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest. The fight had forced open doors, courts had spoken, protections were in place, and children's names now had witnesses. But healing, he realized, would require time, patience, and something stronger than legal triumph. He held the cassette recorder and stack of Anna's drawings now digitized for investigators and reporters. Each image told a story no courtroom could fully capture. Each stroke of crayon held truth. Olivia walked in quietly, carrying a plate of toast. Anna mumbled in her sleep and stirred. "Here," Olivia said gently. "She wants breakfast soon." Nathan nodded. "Thank you. Peanut butter toast," he thought. No syrup, Anna's favorite. He'd learned small details made comfort. Outside, autumn leaves whispered against silent forest. In the distance, radio chatter buzzed advocates coordinating access, transport, and therapy for families still seeking news of missing children. The movement had momentum. It was no longer a whisper, but a chorus. Nathan took a breath and dialed Nyla. "How are we on staffing, counseling, legal?" "Overwhelmed in the best way," she replied. "We have 2 psychologists lined up pro bono." A sponsor stepped in to fund relocation trust for survivors. And the journalists? They're building an interactive map of all sites, with cross-referenced victim data. Nathan allowed himself a smile. "Anna helped spark this." Nyla's voice softened. "And you kept the flame alive." He nodded, but looked toward Anna. Her eyelids fluttered. Nathan stood, stepping forward until Anna opened her eyes. "Good morning," he whispered. She yawned, head resting on her arms. "Are we safe?" "Yes," he said firmly. "You are safe." She looked at Olivia, then grabbed the toast and took a bite, small, but decisive. "This bear is really your friend, right, Nathan?" He chuckled. "The best one." She closed her eyes, hugging the bear. Nathan stood back, memory pressing in. The street, the vanishing, the jailers, the dream room. The way fear shaped her first memory of freedom. But there was something else burning now, belonging. They gathered in the living area later, joining a virtual meeting with legal counsel, social services, and media. They discussed logistics, ensuring Anna's care wouldn't expose her to publicity, offering asylum for Nyla, and securing mental health care for all survivors. Now the room felt alive with plans, not fear. Justice wasn't just a bedrock foundation. It was scaffolding for rebuilding hope. The legal team needed Anna's voice clear but protected. Nathan agreed. She would be shielded from media but empowered to speak on her own terms. Later, he stepped outside, the crisp air bracing after the meeting. Autumn colors burned around the cabin. He inhaled deeply. Daniel joined him, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. Wordless rhythm passed between them. Finally, Nathan said, "They came for us. They'll come again for the others." Daniel nodded. "They already have Jack Smith, OSC, everything. Institutions are under assault, even now." Nathan folded his hands. "But we built protection too. OSC remains independent. Judges have upheld it. The agency and its protections still exist." He was thinking of recent headlines. Trump's efforts to fire OSC's head were blocked by federal courts, affirming the legally mandated for-cause protections. The agency's mandate remained intact, meaning whistleblowers remained secure in principle. Yet, Paul Ingracia's nomination threatened political independence, an unsettling cloud. Nathan said quietly, "We need to help shield the agency too." Daniel nodded. "We will." Inside, Anna called for them. She wanted to show a new drawing. Her hand gripped the teddy. Nathan entered, kneeling beside her. She held up a picture. A line of children holding hands, stepping out of cages into daylight. Under it, she'd written, "Together we walk home." His throat tightened. This was no courtroom or article, this was pure truth. "Together," he said softly. She smiled, full and strong. Outside, sunlight shimmered through the trees. Justice Anna's, America's, humanity's was waking up. Nathan stood on the stone steps of the anonymous safe house that had become their Washington base, secure, silent, shielded. Autumn's chill clung to his coat as he stared at the horizon. It had been weeks since Anna's testimony. Weeks since Dellinger's challenge to his firing collapsed. Yet the political wind surged around them. He turned to Nyla and Daniel, their faces lit by the soft glow from the windows behind him. The appeals court lifted the injunction. Nathan began, voice low but firm. "Dellinger is officially removed." The words landed like a blow. Nyla's jaw tightened. Without cause. Without due process. That undercuts the agency's entire independence. Nathan nodded grimly. Judge Amy Berman Jackson had ruled that Congress intended OSC to be insulated from political whims, removal only for inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance. But the D.C. Circuit has now allowed the firing to stand while appeal continues. Daniel adjusted the tablet in his hand, flipping through articles. This isn't isolated. Trump fired at least 17 inspectors general in a single night January purge. It's a direct attack on oversight. Nathan's eyes hardened. They're dismantling institutional barriers one by one, not just OSC, but the very system designed to protect us. Nyla exhaled. Their next move is likely dismantling the Merit Systems Protection Board, or firing watchdogs in other agencies. It's all part of an authoritarian blueprint. Nathan turned back to the house, where Anna's laughter drifted softly from within. The image of her drawing children stepping into daylight flared in his memory. He crossed the threshold into the war room. Inside, researchers, attorneys, and journalists crowded around a digital map of RexCorp sites. On the table lay Anna's notebook and sketches, bright, defiant, unforgettable. Daniel swiped away the grim headlines and focused on legislation. We need to protect the whistleblowers. The Special Counsel Independence and Integrity Act, stalled since 2018, could codify for, cause removals, and require advance notice. Nathan nodded. We'll push it again as part of the response to Dellinger's ouster. He looked around the room, urgency in the air. We've exposed Rex Corpse. We've freed Anna and sparked public outrage. But without institutional safeguards, today's victories may be erased tomorrow. Nyla stepped forward. We need a multi-pronged approach. Legal action, public pressure, and political reform protect independent oversight. Daniel added, we've already placed data with major news outlets and advocacy groups. If we mobilize lawyers and lawmakers now, a young attorney raised her hand. I have contacts at the House Oversight Committee. They want briefings. Fast. Nathan's eyes lit with quiet resolve. Set it up. At that moment, Anna skipped in, tossing her coat aside. Justice the bear in hand, she climbed onto Nathan's lap. He smiled and kissed the top of her head. Hey there, he said softly. She looked up, serious. You'll keep things safe, won't you? He met her gaze. Every day. You're not just safe, you're the reason many others will be safe now too. She nodded. Outside, the sun set behind the Capitol as the team prepared for what came next. No longer just survivors, they were activists, protectors. The spark had ignited something bigger, and they would make sure it didn't burn out. Nathan leaned over the table in the safe house's war room, surrounded by legal briefs, news clippings, and Anna's drawings. Outside, the world was changing fast, uncertain, but still breathing. He looked at Daniel and Nyla, each aware of the magnitude behind that courtroom battle. And what followed now was the harder part. We have an opening, Nathan said. The Supreme Court just declined to reinstate Dellinger permanently. Judge Jackson's ruling still stands for now. Daniel nodded. Appeals court allowed the firing, yes, but with the stay lifted, there's momentum to restore OSC's independence. Public sentiment is strong, Nyla exhaled. They won't back down. It's up to Congress now. Nathan pulled up a draft of the Special Counsel Independence and Integrity Act, updating it with new language, codifying for cause removal, and mandating written notification. We push this, he said. We're not just saving institutions, we're protecting every child who might ever step forward. Across the table, the young attorney chimed in. Senator Blumenthal introduced the Congressional Whistleblower Protection Act of 2025. It broadens protections for federal employees. That can be our vehicle. Nathan allowed himself a small smile. Combine them. Build a legislative shield. Later, Anna and Olivia were seated at a quiet corner of the cabin, working on coloring a new drawing. Anna had wiped away her tears weeks ago, but scars remained soft, veiled in sunlight. Look, Anna said, pointing. This is us with big wings flying over cages. She smiled, eyes bright. We help all the kids. Olivia handed her a fresh crayon. Those wings are strong, honey. Anna drew a final stroke and closed her book. Back in Washington, Nathan and Nyla met with lawmakers in hushed, crowded rooms. The draft bill was circulating. The idea, make independent watchdogs truly independent, set hard rules to prevent partisan firings, and expand safe channels for whistleblowers across all agencies. Nathan left Capitol Hill that day feeling the fragile pulse of something bigger change. That evening, a secure video call linked them to OSC's headquarters, where staff celebrated a minor victory. The agency had just recognized 2 whistleblowers with public service awards. A sign that culture could shift. Daniel added, the agency's transparency updates requiring summaries and agency head sign-offs are starting to stick. Nyla leaned forward. When the new act passes, we're going to expand those reforms. Days later, in a community center filled with families, Nathan and Nyla presented their plan. A grassroots alliance with advocacy groups, Protecting Children Witness Voices Coalition. Parents, survivors, whistleblowers, and legal advocates stood together. Anna watched from the front row. Justice the bear was in her lap, colored wings peeking out. Nathan took the mic. We're building more than laws. We're building guardianship that endures. The audience erupted in applause. That night, the cabin was quiet. Anna slept soundly. Nathan and Olivia watched her from the doorway. She's the heart of all this, he said softly. She always was, Olivia replied. In the war room, legislation was being refined. The FBI Whistleblower Protection Enhancement Act had been introduced, strengthening protections for agents. Nailed it, Nathan said, closing his laptop. Every branch, every child, every truth. Weeks later, headlines flashed. Congress advances bill shielding special counsel and whistleblowers. Inside their cabin, Anna ran her fingers over the frame drawing of children stepping into daylight. Nathan joined her. We're not just telling their stories, we're safeguarding their future. Anna looked up, sleepy smile bright. I did that. He kissed her head. You did. You helped them all. Outside, the wind stirred the turning leaves of autumn. And inside, as faint sirens sounded in the distance, justice wasn't just a moment. It had become a movement and a promise. Nathan watched the morning light filter through the curtains, ironing sharp beams across Anna's drawing of children walking free. He held his breath, remembering where they had been and where they were going. Within the past week, the legal battle over the independence of the Office of Special Counsel had erupted into the national conscience. A federal judge had ruled that President Trump's firing of Hampton Dellinger was unlawful, stating it violated the statute that protects whistleblower agencies from partisan dismissal, ISCM. Circuit Court upheld that order in a split ruling resisting political overreach and affirming procedural norms. The Supreme Court, meanwhile, declined to intervene, immediately buying precious time for advocates to fortify institutions. These victories, though fragile, rekindled hope. Nathan turned to Dan and Nyla, already deep in work at their Hillside Operations Center. Members of Congress had rallied behind strengthened oversight laws. Some even referenced their cause as a turning point in defending democracy. Just after breakfast, parliamentarian staffers from the Oversight Committee arrived. The bills were moving fast. The Special Counsel Independence and Integrity Act, now revived after years of dormancy, and the newly energized Congressional Whistleblower Protection Act of 2025 were gaining bipartisan support. Nathan felt the weight of history and the bustle around him. This was more than lawmaking. This was a response to the voices of the silenced, and an answer beginning to form. That afternoon, he met with a coalition of whistleblower organizations, ethics groups, and survivors. Around the long wooden table, they laid out a toolkit. Advocacy, media campaigns, survivor stories, and legal strategies. Nyla shared data. The Inspector General mass firing case added pressure judge, found the dismissals likely illegal, even if reinstatement wasn't practical. Daniel added. This echoes dangerous trends nationwide. Project 2025 planning sought to dismantle checks and balances and subordinate agencies to executive control. They paused for a moment. The truth of that autocratic blueprint had finally become public alarm, and their fight had become more than about Anna. That evening, Olivia and Anna sat with crayon drawings spread between them. Anna held up a picture. A huge tree with roots shaped like hands. On the trunk, children stood, each holding a sign, Protect Justice. The bark rings were faces, symbols of every child. Anna looked at him and whispered, We planted roots, Nathan. He nodded, voice thick. We are. Back in Washington, hearings had begun. Nathan gave testimony via secure video feed. He described how children were weaponized behind closed doors and named the accountable Rex Corps, their allies, apathy itself. Silence is collusion, he said. This country chooses now to stand with the persecuted or with their oppressors. News outlets replayed the line. Advocacy groups used it as a campaign slogan. Grassroots rallies echoed it. Republicans and Democrats joined the cause. The House Oversight Committee advanced the bills. Senate Judiciary held hearings. Both acts were now on expedited tracks. Weeks later, OSC staff who had once feared political interference raised a toast at a small gathering. Dellinger remained in office. Whistleblower referrals spiked. The agency had firm protections and momentum. Nathan watched from afar, wiping a rare, happy tear. At home that night, he found Olivia tucking Anna into bed. The child's eyes, brimmed with childish wonder, asked, We're still safe? Right? He smiled, brushing her hair back. You've been safe since the moment you ran into my life. Anna held Justice the bear tight. Thank you, she whispered, for not letting me disappear. Nathan kissed her head. You taught me that no one should ever vanish in silence. The next morning, newspapers splashed headlines. Congress passes special counsel and whistleblower protection bills. Inside, he read, "Robust bipartisan votes, a victory for oversight and justice." Nathan looked at Anna's root tree drawing stronger than laws. Outside, autumn light played on turning leaves. They had grown from survivors into guardians. And now, a nation had begun growing with them. Dawn broke over the safe house, settling gold light across Anna's new drawing still pinned to the kitchen wall. It showed a field of children standing beneath a big sky, each holding crushed chains that turned into birds midair. Nathan gazed at it, allowed a brief moment of peace before the day ahead demanded everything they had. The war had expanded. Overnight, networks of survivors, advocates, lawyers, and families had formed across cities Charlotte, Chicago, San Antonio, anchored by the framework Nathan and Nyla had launched. Their network was called Voices Rising, and by sunrise, other children's faces had begun appearing on the shared map. With new leads from Dayton and Atlanta, they'd pinpointed at least 5 more secret sites. Some held children, others held records long thought buried. Nathan poured coffee as he scanned news feeds. Celebrations in Congress, media segments lauding whistleblower reforms, and countless human stories of survivors finding each other. The narrative had shifted from victimhood to empowerment. Olivia appeared at the counter, holding toast topped with sliced bananas, a comforting gesture. "She's awake?" she asked. "Yep," he said, "just finishing planning. You free?" She nodded. They went to the living room, where Anna was already coloring, but paused as 2 dressed men appeared on screen. These were representatives from Voices Rising, revealed now publicly. They carried books, ledgers, testimonies, files. They introduced themselves calmly, acknowledging they'd once been minor partners in RexCorp's early research before they walked away. One of them spoke. "We're turning ourselves in as community witnesses. We have files, transport logs, security shifts, programming objectives." Nathan and Nyla exchanged glances. Nathan swallowed. "You're placing your names on this," he said. "We're putting our names behind these children," the man replied. His voice cracked slightly. "They deserve that." Nathan cleared his throat. "Thank you. We will make sure your testimony reaches every watchdog, every court, every person who can act." The video call ended. The room was quiet for a long moment. Anna looked up. "Are you okay?" He smiled at her. "Brave people are coming forward." Her smile mirrored the birds in her drawing. Later that morning, the team met to coordinate extraction of survivors still held in unknown locations. They'd used the transport logs shared by the former insiders to locate a storage facility in Ohio. "It's a junk warehouse," Daniel said, studying satellite images. "But inside, from what I'm seeing, could be temporary cells for children, aka new arrivals. A juvenile detention complex was nearby. Maybe they held records. Maybe they were complicit." They assembled 4 teams across 3 states. Nathan, with Olivia's blessing, took the Northeast Wing, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan. Another, led by Nyla, went south. Daniel coordinated tech deployments across teams, feeding updates to accessible reporters and advocacy organizations. The pull of momentum was relentless. The public now demanded answers. That evening, overnight shadows falling, the safe house team convened. Daniel was flush with data. "We have children's drawings found at the warehouse and cell photos from the 1,972nd bunkers. They match Anna's sketches." Nyla nodded. "These places are connected rope lines of facilities. They used to operate under a single chain of command." Nathan stress-tested the map, highlighted routes, dated files, and compiled names. Each dot represented another child, another escape to orchestrate, another story to preserve. He locked eyes with Nyla. "Harvest stories as well as children. No one disappears in silence." Back home, Anna finished a new illustration, hands reaching out across glowing roads, connecting at the center. She slipped to the hallway where Nathan and Olivia pinned it next to her other work. Nathan crouched beside her. "Your art is helping kids find their way home." She nodded without words, her gaze steady. Once she was asleep, Nathan and Olivia stood in the hallway. "She's growing tired," Olivia said gently. He whispered, "So are we, but not weak." That night, at a separate site in Ohio, Nathan led his team through rows of stacked furniture and dusty crates. Under a flickering bulb, they found 3 children, ages 6 to 9, thin, hollow-eyed. "Child one," whispered Nathan as he gathered them and placed thermal blankets around them. "We're here to help." Soft sobs, and then whispered introductions. One child said, "I remember the bells." Another, "They said no one was coming." Nathan's heart clenched as blankets wrapped small shoulders. They guided them out, under the moonlight. He thought, there were more like them waiting. That was why their movement needed to grow faster, farther. By dawn, they were back at command. 4 children reunited that night. At least 3 more warehouses under investigation, families watching maps, praying. And in that moment, law and narrative had become more than words. They had become action. Nathan closed his eyes, leaning back. Beside him, Nyla placed her hand on his shoulder. "We're doing it," she said softly. He nodded. Voices Rising isn't just a coalition. It's a chorus now. A coastal wave. And somewhere, children were waking with their names again, with arms to hold instead of bars. The guards of tomorrow were learning the price of silence and the power of voices that broke it. The sunrise lit the Appalachian treetops with soft gold as Nathan stepped onto the porch of the safe house. The crisp morning air carried the scent of pine and possibility. He clutched a fresh stack of printed bills, his legislative toolkit, refined and ready for the next phase. The Congressional Whistleblower Protection Act of 2025 had formally passed both the House and Senate and was heading to the president's desk. Inside, Nyla and Daniel were already immersed in calls. Their movement, Voices Rising, had evolved into a hub of activism. Local chapters across 5 states were coordinating outreach to survivors and allies. Every day, more names the long-hidden children emerged into the light. Earlier, Daniel had reported an update. The Minnesota Omnibus Bill expanded state-level whistleblower protections and increased transparency in grant programs. Even at the local level, momentum built. Nathan inhaled deeply. "This is more than reform," he said softly. "It's a cultural shift." By mid-morning, a secure Zoom filled the screen with the faces of advocacy leaders, survivors turned lobbyists, and even state officials. At its center, the newly crafted AI Whistleblower Protection Act, introduced by Senator Grassley, had just passed committee markup, clearing a significant hurdle. Nyla leaned forward, voice firm. "This will give AI developers safe paths to speak up. No more punitive NDAs, shielding corporate wrongdoing." Nathan nodded. "We're extending the shield not only for institutional oversight, but for emerging threats like AI misuse." Daniel added, "Also, the SEC Whistleblower Reform Act of 2025 is finally gaining traction. It protects internal reporting and ensures timely processing." He paused. "This synergy between child protection, oversight integrity, and tech safety is rare and powerful." That afternoon, at a regional Voices Rising meeting, Nyla addressed a humble crowd of survivors, allies, and legal volunteers. "We are building a future where no one is afraid to speak," she said, eyes sweeping the room. "Where every voice, especially children, can be trusted, supported, and protected." A former guard from one of the sites spoke quietly. "I regret what I didn't say, but I'm ready to help now." Nathan watched as tears coursed down his face. The redemption arc he once thought impossible was unfolding right here. Evening came, and Anna sat beside Nathan in the living room, coloring her newest drawing. It showed a ring of grown people, lawyers, legislators, therapists, community members standing around a field of children, their arms extended like guardians. She looked up. "Will they stay?" Nathan's voice cracked. "Yes, we asked them to. And they said yes." She handed him the picture. "We did that." Her belief echoed in every brushstroke. Later that night, the safe house was quiet. Voices Rising volunteers worked deep into the evening, pushing updates to local shelters, posting hotline numbers for survivors who still needed help. The wave they had started was rolling outward. Nathan and Nyla sat together, analyzing data. 5 new sites identified across 3 states, Nyla reported. "We're coordinating rescue operations next week." He nodded. "Every child we free, every whistleblower we protect, it tightens our shield around the vulnerable." He thought of Judge Jackson's precedent affirming institutional independence, and the legislations signed or soon to be on oversight, AI, and financial transparency. He whispered into the quiet, "We still have to protect the protections themselves." When Nathan checked his phone, a news alert flashed. Congress passes historic whistleblower safeguards. A unified front for child protection, government accountability, and AI transparency. He read it, swallowing hard. The laws they'd pushed were now enshrined in the nation's conscience. He folded the screen down. Sitting beside him, Anna fidgeted with Justice the bear's ear. He held her gently. "Your courage saved us all." Outside, the forest was still, but beneath its bark, new roots had taken hold. Voices rising had become a living, breathing force. The guardians of tomorrow were no longer hidden. They were awake, they were strong, and their voices would never be silenced. Nathan woke to the faint glow of sunrise through the cabin window. Outside, the Appalachian forest was painted in pale gold and soft reds, the season shifting, signaling change. He rose quietly, carrying Anna's root tree, drawing her vision of solidarity etched in crayon, and placed it on his desk beside the legislative drafts, flyers, and maps. It was the culmination of everything they had built. The tone of the world had changed. The AI Whistleblower Protection Act had advanced to committee markup, thanks to Senator Grassley's bipartisan leadership. Support for shielding technologists who exposed dangerous AI vulnerabilities had never been stronger. The bill explicitly prohibited employment discrimination against those reporting such violations, offering legal remedies like reinstatement, back pay, and compensatory damages. Importantly, it declared that NDAs or arbitration agreements could not strip away these protections. Nathan picked up his phone. Messages of gratitude and urgency streamed in. Advocates celebrated, yet felt the heaviness of vigil. Oversight must endure. He stepped outside to find Nyla, holding 2 coffees. "It's moving," she said quietly. "AI bill, whistleblower protections. Congress is the gatekeeper now." "I know," he said. Dreams had solidified into law. "But we need to guard that gate. The fight for oversight is never over." They drank their coffee as dawn's crest spread across the sky. Later, the team gathered for a virtual briefing that strewn lines of authority not just with law, but with living souls. Daniel shared new data, thanks to one of the insiders who came forward. The group now tracked 12 confirmed active sites across 6 states. Scores of children were still missing, all victims of a clandestine network weaponizing vulnerability. Now, every survivor's voice had an echo. Every story had allies. "We're initiating simultaneous extractions next week," Nathan said. "Teams will spread to Ohio, Texas, Virginia, Arizona." Nyla matched his gaze. "And we'll keep spotlighting them, force accountability, not let these disappearances continue." They discussed security, ethics, and tone. This movement wasn't heroism, it was duty reborn. That afternoon, Anna joined them. She handed Nathan her latest creation, a wide circle of faces, older and younger, blank notebook pages now painted in joy. She whispered, "This is everyone we're bringing home." He hugged her fiercely. "You built this," he said. "Every face will have a story again." In Washington, lawmakers moved swiftly. Press coverage followed. The newly drafted Special Counsel Independence and Integrity Act, updated to match today's threats, was reintroduced, with strong bipartisan backing. It codified that removal of special counsel could only happen with written notification and just cause, and allowed judicial review. It was under consideration in multiple committees. Meanwhile, the press exposed Trump's nominee to lead the OSC, Paul Ingrassia, a figure marked with controversial views and perceived loyalty, heightening awareness of threats to institutional neutrality. These developments galvanized the movement. Voices rising, organized public hearings, survivor testimonies, media campaigns, and solidarity rallies, making democratic accountability not abstract, but personal. Evening fell. But the war room never slept. The extraction missions were underway. Phones buzzed with real-time updates. Site A, Ohio, 4 children freed. Site B, Texas, a former RexCorps nurse surrendered, offering affidavits. Site C, Virginia, abandoned industrial complex, cleared with no survivors, found hints of earlier transfers. "Every life matters," Nyla repeated as they reviewed maps. Late at night, Nathan stood at the window, papier-mâché scraps from Anna's latest drawing scattered at his feet. He thought of how their story had started a frail child on a sidewalk, and how it had become the backbone of justice for so many. Olivia appeared, wrapping a blanket around his shoulders. "You've done more than fight," she said. "You changed everything." He traced Anna's apple-red fingerprints on the page. "We did." In the distance, sirens blended with the night breeze. But inside, hope glowed, because a little girl Anna had refused to be forgotten. And now, a nation had learned how to guard itself. The story of Anna teaches us that even the smallest voice can ignite a revolution. In a world often blinded by power and silence, one child's courage to escape, speak out, and trust again reminded us of the sacred duty to protect the vulnerable. It is a call to action reminding us that justice isn't a distant concept, but a commitment we must uphold in every courtroom, every community, and every quiet decision to do what is right. Her journey proves that healing begins not when the system is fixed, but when we choose to no longer look away.